When you read the John's Gospel from chapter 1 all the way to this beginning in chapter 2, you count, John counts 7 days. Interesting. 7 days. And on the 7th day, it begins chapter 2. On the 3rd day, there was a marriage in Cana. On the 7th day of this accounting in his gospel, there's this celebration. There's this wedding. There's this marriage that takes place. Now, we know how John begins his gospel. The first verse is, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God, and all things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made." What does that sound like to you? Genesis. What's the first verse of Genesis? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. John begins his gospel in exactly the same manner. What was Genesis 1 recounted? What is it describing? Creation. The old creation? The first creation?
Yes.
What is John then describing?
Last creation.
Second creation. And it begins with the Word that was with God. And verse 14 says, "The Word became flesh and dwelt among us." What John is describing, this is not a mistake. This is his counting of the new creation story, like in Genesis, except this is the new creation. And as with the old creation, it ends with Adam and Eve, right? Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. That was God's command, right? What does the new creation begin with? Jesus and Mary, the new Adam, the new Eve. And the first thing that happens is the manifestation of his glory. The new creation has begun because Jesus' ministry is now launched, and it will continue with 7 signs that John will record. This was the first. 7 signs that will authenticate Jesus' place as the new creator of the new creation. And what is Jesus going to talk about in chapter 3? When he talks to Nicodemus, what does he say? "Nicodemus, you must be born again." He talks and preaches this new creation from the beginning. When he talks to the woman at the well in Samaria, he says, "Your ancestors argued over which mountain to worship on. I tell you, God is spirit, and those who worship must worship in spirit and in truth." A new creation is happening. See that? You keep going on in John's Gospel. Jump ahead to the big miracle of John's Gospel. John chapter 11. Lazarus is dead. Dead. 4 days in the tomb. 4. Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. He's starting to stink. Right? What does Jesus say? "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he were dead, will come back to life." New creation. It's all the theme of John's Gospel. Jesus is the great I am. He is God Almighty, and he keeps reaffirming this. Some have argued that Lazarus' miracle is greater than Jesus' resurrection from the dead. Why? Because Jesus was only dead 3 days. Lazarus was dead 4. He saw decay. Jesus never saw decay. But then again, some will argue, well, Jesus raised him from the dead. Jesus raised himself from the dead. So Lazarus didn't raise himself. He needed help. You know what I mean? So, but there are those theologians that would argue it was a greater miracle. It was a greater miracle. But nevertheless, Jesus rises from the dead. And the theme of John's gospel, the whole theme is summarized in John chapter 20, verse 30. John chapter 20, verse 30. Page 98 if you have my Bible. John 20, 30, and 31. Now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book, but these are written, that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you may have life in his name. The whole purpose of John's gospel is so that you would come to believe and know that Jesus is the Son of God, and that by that you too would receive new creation life, and that you would be part of this new creation. Paul picks up this idea in 1 Corinthians and talks about Jesus is the second Adam. The first Adam brought death because he sinned. The second Adam brings life because he overcame death. Okay? Consequently, and none the least of which was St. Irenaeus, you know, my favorite theologian, described if Jesus is the new Adam, this makes Mary the new Eve. This makes Mary the new Eve. So God is recreating his family. And this new family is the church. This new family. And here's where it starts. It is in this scene that really inaugurates this new creation. So there's, like I said, so much that we could, when we do these meditations, think about. And all of this is related to what we're talking about in the Song of Songs. Because it is the song that draws us into him. It is the love call of God to us. He is the bridegroom of the wedding, and we are his bride, being wooed to love. Wooed to love. That's the whole point of the Song of Songs. I am my beloved, and my beloved is mine. Thank you. I am my beloved, and he is mine. Oh, that he would kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. His love is better than wine. That was chapter 1. That was just the beginning. Now we're into chapter 2. Great way to segue into our table talk again, right? Yes. What I'd like you to do, last week we got through somewhat of the first two questions of the application. I want to give us a little time again in here, especially for those who may not have done their homework last week. Hopefully you did your homework this week. I want you to focus on questions 3 and 4 tonight. I'm going to pick up at the small but mighty table here and go around and see if we can get everyone to talk about those. Questions 3 and 4. If you want to do a little bit of 2 as well, go ahead. But I'm going to give you, let's say 25 minutes. 25 minutes. That way we'll have enough time to hopefully finish. Focus on questions 3 and 4 tonight. Questions 3 and 4. If you do not have one of our study books, okay, look on with someone who does. And if you want to order one, you certainly may. You can talk to me afterwards. All right? So, 25 minutes. Let's go ahead and have a good discussion. There you go.